Welcome to Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 43. Hi, I'm Jill. This podcast is designed for women over 50 who want to focus on getting and staying fit, eating healthy, and maintaining an active lifestyle as we grow older.
Hi, I'm Chris. The Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast is part of the Becoming Ellie community. If you're new to our community, you may be wondering who Ellie is. Well, she's the Norse goddess of aging. Ellie became our role model because she surprised everyone after she was challenged to a wrestling match with Thor and won. We want to be fit and strong as we age, just like Ellie.
We want to be like Ellie. Our podcast is designed to help bring information to others who are also interested in being like Ellie, the Becoming Ellie community.
We talk to so many interesting women on the podcast. I learn a lot from our guests.
Yes, I do too. Today's guest is Ellen Wisbar. She has been active her whole adult life, but really only took up distance running last year and has now run 2 half marathons.
Ellen is a CPA, which can be a very sedentary job, but she has always used running as an outlet. But she really decided to focus on it within the past year.
Her story's a good one. Let's go to the podcast, shall we?
Welcome, Ellen. We're just really thrilled to have you.
And thank you, Ellen, for doing this. I'm sure this is like...
Totally foreign. Totally foreign for me. I have listened to one podcast in my entire life, and it was the one that you guys did this time last year after you ran the Akron Half.
Oh, okay.
And it was really interesting and informative, and it helped me maybe not pick Akron, but see that other people like our age are doing this stuff, and we're not crazy, and you just get it done.
Right.
Like everything else in life, you just get it done.
Right. Yes.
That's absolutely right. Very good. Well, I'm so glad that you heard our Akron recap. Yeah, that's awesome. You've been part of the Becoming Ellie community for a while now. And I know that you and I met when you were working out at the gym and we were working on a challenge together. And that was, I don't know, a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I remember I recognized you after some group event or class or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a couple laps of the track together and talked a little bit to get to know each other. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Ellen, you and I have known each other for a long time. I don't even know. Our boys were in the same grade.
They were little.
Yeah, they were.
This gets back to like first grade or second grade or something like that. They were little.
They were. You and I were in the professional women's group.
Oh, BPW. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And I do remember one time us being at a meeting and you said you had to leave because you had promised to be home to tuck your kids in. So that's how long ago it was.
Yeah. Neither of them live here anymore. So that was a really long time ago.
They've all grown up. I know you've been a runner for a while, and I'm wondering, how long have you actually been running?
I actually started running because I had to when I was in high school, because I did track and I was on the volleyball team. They would always make us start and do our warm-up for running, but I hated it. And it wasn't until I was out of college and started working that I found it kind of to be a stress buster, and have always run a mile or two just casually, not on a dedicated or consistent basis. It was always because I needed to kind of wind down and relax.
So you've been running your whole adult life pretty much.
Yes, but not the same way that I have been the last year.
Okay.
So you were just running like a mile or two at a time.
Yeah. I really had done the Couch to 5K for a couple of years and never quite got the entire 5K without stopping to take a walk break.
Uh-huh.
And when I finally did that last spring, a friend of mine recruited me into this running group, And that's when I started to run with more consistency. And I think it was because I had a group and it was fun. You'd go out on Sunday mornings before church, run 3 miles, and have coffee afterwards. And so getting to meet people as opposed to just running on Saturday morning around the neighborhood because I could, and being exhausted and not really getting that far and not really having the training knowledge or the kind of support that I needed to really learn how to run farther was a hindrance. And so last summer, having this group of women who had been there and done that was really helpful, and it was really motivating seeing what they were all doing and the posts they were putting on Facebook. And I got hooked. I started going with them, and each run started to be a little bit further, and I signed up for some other races, and the running became, I guess the best way to describe it is more intentional.
Got it. Yeah.
That was kind of a big transition there.
Oh, it was huge. And the other thing that helped was that my kids are grown at this point, so I didn't really need to worry about driving them around, scheduling around their needs. It was kind of a new sense of freedom that they were adults at this point. So I think in terms of my schedule, that helped a lot too.
So you said what were the sports you did in high school?
I played volleyball for 4 years, and then I did softball for a year, and I was on the track and field team, but I did field events. I was not the runner.
Okay. And then
it was kind of funny. I did the shot and discus in high school.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so once you were out of school, and besides running, did you have any other athletic endeavors?
I have always been a skier. I actually met my husband on a ski trip, and we wouldn't ski locally a lot, but we would occasionally take trips out west. That's always fun. I've always enjoyed riding my bike and have done a lot of, they didn't call them boot camp classes, but the step aerobics and all the different things that have cycled through over the years in terms of the group exercise classes. And again, I think I like that because there's always some social component of it.
Right. That is part of what just going to a gym provides, I think, is a sense of it's a sense of community.
Exactly.
Right. Well, our podcast is called Fit Strong Women Over 50, but we found that many people define fit differently. So what do you consider fit? How do you define fit?
I define fit as mentally and physically healthy. One of the things that I mentioned before was that I would run kind of for my own sanity. As a CPA, I would work a lot of hours, and one way to kind of bust all the stress after a long day was to sweat it out, and I would always feel so much better. And I'm really glad to see so much of the focus on mental health these days. But I think when you get to physical fitness, I measure it by things like measuring my cholesterol, measuring my resting heart rate. Coronary heart disease runs in my family, and so I've always been aware that that's something that I need to watch out for. And there is a direct correlation, in me at least, between how much cardiovascular exercise I get and what my cholesterol level is. So that's something I monitor pretty carefully.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't worry about what the scale says. I worry more about how my genes fit when it comes to that kind of thing.
Well, that is as good a measurement as any, I think.
I mean, don't
Absolutely.
get me wrong, I do get on the scale, but I try not to obsess over it.
Well, that's good, because I think it is easy to begin to obsess over that number, and you're right, there's certainly more important ones to consider, and fitting in your clothes is as good a measure of where you are as anything, I think.
Well, I almost think it's a better one, because I think muscle makes you smaller. You can fit in your clothes, even though you might weigh more because muscle is more dense, I believe, right?
Right. Well,
Absolutely.
right.
So you can weigh less and actually have more fat, and your jeans don't fit right.
Well, you can weigh more and be thinner. You could be, you could wear a smaller
be stronger.
size. Yes, because you have more muscle.
Yeah,
that's what I was trying to say. You said it the right way.
I went through a women's weightlifting group exercise at LifeCenter as well. And one of the things I learned about that was how strong I could be. Like, I had never been able to do a real push-up before going to that class. And going regularly over a period of time, I actually, for the first time in my life, had upper body strength. And I feel like I am probably stronger now than I was in my 30s, just because I've got time to focus on it, and I'll do burpees or push-ups or whatever. And I learned a lot about how strength, it helps you feel better. It helps you function better in your daily life. And you're right, the muscle does weigh more than the fat. So you can't always correlate what the scale says to how the jeans fit. It's not a direct correlation. Things move.
Yes.
Yeah, they move, and you've got a different mix of what your body's made out of.
Right, right.
So this past weekend, you ran a half marathon.
I did.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
That was the Akron Half Marathon. I remember last year you sort of deciding that you were going to try and do this. But did you have a goal for this race? I know it's not your first one, but what was your intent for this?
I had a goal, and my goal was to run faster than I did in May when I did my first half marathon. My first one was the Cleveland Half, and it was really, really hot outside. It was hot and humid, and all the training had been done in very cool temperatures. And I'd had 2 goals. I read this, it was a tip that Shailene Flanagan, I think, had put out there in her cookbook. It said you should have your goal for the perfect day, the perfect weather, the perfect circumstances, and then you should have like a B goal and a C goal. So my A goal was to finish in 2 hours and 30 minutes, which is about 11.5 minute pace. And my B goal was to just finish. And I did not hit the goal pace, but I finished, and I was really glad that I finished. But it was rough. By the time I finished, I mean, you're always exhausted, I think, after running that far, but I did not feel great. I just felt like I wanted to curl up somewhere for a while. So my goal for this one was to try to get that goal pace and to have fun while I was doing it. So I changed my training up a little bit. And as we got closer to Saturday, started to realize that the weather forecast was going to be not all that different than it was for Cleveland. And this breaking the pace and getting down to 2.5 hours may not be realistic. So I decided that my goal was going to be just to go out and to have fun, to enjoy the scenery, and to have this be a fun experience, a positive running experience, instead of at the end of it just feeling just so drained that you didn't even want to move. And that task was accomplished. I ran with a friend. I finished at almost an identical time as what I finished in Cleveland, but we had so much fun over those 13 miles that I can't wait to do another one. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we just sat back and enjoyed it. And I think my training helped me get through at about the same time, but I felt stronger. I felt better. There was no point at which I felt like I can't do this. I have to make myself keep going. I felt good.
That's great. Well, I wanted to ask you, what was your training plan like? Like, how many months did you train? How many days a week did you run? Was there cross training? What was your training plan?
Yeah, there's a series of plans by a gentleman named Hal Higdon, and I followed his beginner's plan. It was the same plan that I followed the first time, but I had a much stronger base because I have been running longer. For the marathon in May, I really started training in January, and it was on a base of roughly 8 to 10 miles on average per week. And when I started training more seriously around the 4th of July for this race, I had a base that was probably closer to between 10 and 15 miles a week. So a lot of my mileage at the beginning was, what do I want to say? I was doing longer runs already at the beginning. And I think that enabled me to throw in the strength training, to throw in some of the tempo runs and some of the track work that I really wasn't getting done the first time, even though it was in the plan, because I was tired.
Well, I know they say that even when you get these plans, but until you have several months of just running, all those things sort of don't matter because you just have to get the endurance in first.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that in May that you were just getting acclimated to running that kind of distance. And then after having done that, then you have the ability to start focusing on sort of the finesse of the whole thing of speed and running, whatever.
Yeah. I think that there's two other things that really helped. One was being more prepared mentally because I'd been there. I knew what it felt like.
Right.
And running 12 miles on the towpath is not the same as being in an environment where the adrenaline is going, there's people all around you, there's lots of hills and bridges, and it was just very, very different. I kind of knew what to expect going into this one, which helped me stay strong throughout. The other big difference was I ran this one with a girlfriend from the running group. And so we kind of buddied up. We're very comparable in terms of our paces, and we crossed the finish line together. And it was really fun. There were a couple times I slowed down because she needed nutrition or water. There's a couple times she slowed down because I needed to catch my breath, but it didn't matter. We slowed down a couple times so she could take pictures. We slowed down once so I could pet this dog from a shelter. We just had fun. And when it was all said and done, like I said, in terms of a pace, it was almost identical in both races, but this was so much more enjoyable.
Well, it's interesting because Chris and I did the Cleveland Half Marathon, not this year, but the year before. And
did you run it together?
We ran that one together. We don't usually run races together because our speeds aren't quite the same. But I was very slow that year, so Chris and I did the race together. And
it was really fun.
I think she slowed down for me. But we had so much fun.
We really
that was
did.
the most fun I think I ever had. We stopped to take pictures and we were talking to people and it was so enjoyable. And you forget that part, that sometimes that there's a very social element to running and races. And
Jill, you know what else I think was great about that? Just like Ellen just said, it was our second half marathon, so we knew what to expect. I think the first one, it's so different. It took us a little while to kind of get our arms around it, whereas the second one is, I don't want to say easier, but you're more mentally prepared.
Yes, I think that's true. You agree with that, Ellen?
At 100%. It makes all the difference in the world.
I think that's true with any race. I remember the very first 5K I went to, and I went to that by myself. I was so nervous, and I had no idea what to expect, and the sheet said, registration starts at 7. I don't think the race started until like 8:45 or something. So I was there right at 7, only to realize that nobody else was there right at 7,
Yeah, it's easy to psych yourself out when you're not sure what it's going to be like.
Right. Once you do it, then all right, you don't have to be the first person there.
Yeah. Well, and things get more and more fun, depending on the weather. I mean, you mentioned, Ellen, that the weather was really hot when you ran Cleveland in the spring and then again in Akron. So was the weather in Akron this weekend, was that what you had expected? How did it affect your race?
I would say it's not what we hoped for in late September, but we watched the forecast, and so it was what we expected. Now, the good news is these races start early enough in the morning. So this one started at 7:30, and we were done. It took, it was 10 or 15 minutes before we crossed the starting line, and we finished at, I'm going to say 10:15. So it wasn't really hot yet. It was actually pretty nice. And there were a few stretches where it rained on us, but it was just a soft, gentle, refreshing drizzle as opposed to a downpour. There was no wind, and it felt good, actually. And the sun was out by the time the race was over. So, I wish it had been 10 degrees cooler, but it wasn't. And you take what you get. You run the race you're in that day.
Right. And at least this time you had been running through the summer, so it wasn't as big a change as in spring when you've been.
Yeah. The Cleveland one, we had generally been training in multiple layers and in hats and leggings. And the Akron one, you're training when it's much, much warmer. So your body gets accustomed to it. And I'm sure that had a big impact too.
So Chris and I did the Akron Half a couple of times, and we did the relay race there a couple of times, but they changed the course this year. And so I'm wondering how it was being bused to the start line.
They did such a nice job with that. I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of other races, but we showed up downtown at a little bit after 6. We got in line. The line moved very quickly. All the runners were sociable. We met the people we were in line with, and they hopped us on buses that were just regular city buses and drove us right up to Stan Hewitt, dropped us off, and it was a continual loop. The buses were clean. They were not overcrowded. Everybody had a seat. It was very easy. And the start area was really well organized. They had the corrals clearly marked. There were tons of porta potties. You could do your gear check either downtown or up by the start point. And the elites were separate from us, but they had a big TV so you could see them and their start because they, of course, get to go before everybody else does. People had told me that they do such a nice job at the Akron Marathon, and they really did. I was so impressed with how smoothly everything went.
That's great.
Yeah. Were you able to see the gardens at Stan Hewitt, or was it still dark when you got there?
It was still dark when we got there.
I wondered.
One of the things that was really cool is while we were waiting to start, some of this drizzle passed by, and it was so pretty because it made a rainbow. And a lot of people got great pictures, which they were able to post. The rainbow lasted probably 3 minutes, but it was beautiful, and it was just uplifting and a neat way to start the race.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a special message, wasn't it? That things are going to go well. That's what I thought. Yeah. So when you were running, how did you fuel? Had you practiced what you were going to eat when you were doing your training, and what did you eat?
I decided to wear my hydration vest. I have a belt that holds a bottle and then has a pocket for keys. And then midway during the year, this year, I actually went out and bought a vest. And they have water stations out there, but the advice that I had from others was to bring your own water with you, because that way you can stop when and where you want, and you're not dependent on going another mile or however long it is to get to the water stop. So I had my own water and really didn't use the stations for anything. In terms of fuel, I like the brand. It's a Picky Bar.
Oh, yeah.
They're all natural ingredients. You can pronounce everything that's in there. I've used some of the gels, but what I don't like about them is that when your hands get all sweaty, I have a hard time opening because my hand slips off sometimes. And then if you get the goop on your fingers, it's kind of gross and you're all sticky.
Yes.
So
right.
It's
sort of like frosting, right? It's
nothing to do with the nutritional value. But there's another brand of those that I actually really liked that has all natural ingredients in it as well. But I think that I like the bars better just because you can take what you need and stick the rest of it back in, whatever your hydration vest, whatever you're using. I was really glad I had that with me.
That was a Picky Bar? How do you spell that?
I think it's Picky. Like you're picky about what you eat. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I've seen those in the running stores.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have too. And you can get them online if you want to, but I don't go through that many of them a year. Yeah. So I just grab a couple of them. And the other thing I do is I make sure that I have breakfast, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich just seems to do the job for me.
That's great. Do you wish you had done anything differently with food?
I wish I had eaten more while I was running. I had 2 full Picky Bars with me, and we were so busy taking pictures and doing stuff that we got to get. I hadn't even eaten the entire first one. So I finished it once we crossed the finish line, and I really needed to because I sat down to rest. And when I stood up, I was getting lightheaded. So I thought, just sit down. Sure. You actually haven't eaten. You need some water. And I just gave myself time before worrying about going over to the finishers party.
Yeah, that's good. So, okay. How did the race compare to the Cleveland half?
In terms of difficulty, I think it was pretty comparable. Everybody says that they changed the course to make it less hilly this year with the new route. But according to my Garmin, it was within about 20 feet of elevation difference. So I think it was about the same. The one aspect that I liked so much better was that Akron was largely through neighborhoods. So you had a lot of block parties, you had sponsors where people were coming out. At one point, there was a garage band that was playing. There were a ton of boom boxes, and people were very engaged. It also, as you know, benefits the Akron Children's Hospital. And so there was a hero about once every mile. And to see some of those kids and their families, and just I was worried that it would make me tear up, but it was actually so inspiring. I high-fived almost every single one of them as we went through. And the fact that you were in the neighborhoods and it was so much easier to get the people out and have the crowd support. Cleveland is fun and it goes through the flats, but you go through a lot of industrial sections and the community just isn't there.
Right.
So that was a big difference. The other thing you get in the neighborhoods is there's a lot more shade too. You don't get that down in the flats and on the west side of Cleveland.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
I remember seeing you at a 4th of July race in 2018, and that was through a neighborhood. And you've probably done lots of other races too. What has been your favorite race?
I've not thought about that question before. I've not actually done a lot of races. Maybe maybe now I'm just still on the euphoria because it's only been a couple days since Akron. But I really enjoyed this one. Another really fun one that I did is also, it's a neighborhood thing. There's a race here in town called the Frosty 5 that runs on Christmas Eve.
Oh, right.
And Yeah, I did the 5 miles on that this past year. We were lucky because the weather was nice. It was December, so it's cold, but it was actually a very pretty day. That race was a lot of fun too. It was through, the hometown, and there were some folks there that I knew that were out on the race course. It was just a good time.
You're hitting all the different weather. What made you decide to do a half marathon?
It was this running group that my friend kind of drafted me into. I had run, like I told you, the 5K that I ran for the first time without stopping. Then I started showing up for a couple of these coffee runs and seeing all these women posting about their 10Ks, and a bunch of them actually ran Akron last year, either the half or the full. And I just decided, you know what? I think I can do more. I'm going to do a 10K. And the pumpkin run down in Akron last year, that was another really fun one. I decided to train for that by just adding a long run on the weekend. And I just literally started by adding half a mile each week. So longest I had run was 4 miles. And then I said, okay, I'll do 4.5, and then I'll do 5, and then I'll do 5.5. And before you knew it, I was up at 6. That's basically a 10K distance. And so I signed up for the 10K and was really surprised that my training had been effective, because I had negative splits throughout that thing, and my last mile was actually the fastest one of the race. And it made me think that, this stuff works. I can do this. And the more I thought about it, the next step, I guess, was to do a half marathon. Now, fortunately, I've got a friend at work who kind of brought me back down to reality, because one day I came in and said, who trains for half of anything? Who trains for half of game? Why am I doing this? This is stupid. And she's not a runner. She says, okay, what are we going to do about this? Let's think about it. So what have you done so far? And how long is a marathon? And what's the next rational step? And she said, would it make sense to do a half marathon, but think about it as training potentially, just the next step toward a full? And I'm like, Lori, you're awesome. Thank you for bringing me back. I'm going to do this. And I held off just to make sure that I was going to be committed and that I was going to be ready to do it. For one of I've mentioned these coffee runs a couple of times. One of them in December, a couple of representatives from Cleveland came out and they talked to our group over coffee about the race. And I asked one of the more experienced runners, he said, I've never done this before, and we had this extended vacation planned in February. If I'm doing my 3 and 4 mile runs and can't really start with longer runs until March, is that going to really be enough time to prepare? And she asked me a couple questions, and she says, you'll be fine. She says, if you want to do it, you should. Don't worry about the time away impacting it, because it's long enough before the half. So in January, I signed up and started the training cycle and was ready to run in May and did it. In hindsight, I am really proud of how well I did. And I look at my times, and my splits were actually much more consistent than I gave myself credit for at the time because of all the walking that I did. But yeah, I'm proud of myself. And then doing a second one only made sense to me because I wanted to get faster. And at the time, I didn't realize that the real goal should have been to have more fun. And then maybe the faster time will come with more training, with more experience, with cooler temperatures. There's all kinds of things that play into it. But right. I'm definitely going to do another one because I had a good time and I enjoy these long Saturday runs with these friends. You cover the gamut of what you talk about on these longer runs. It's a neat community and a neat group of people to get to know.
That's great. That's great. So other than running, what do you do to cross train? I mean, do you bike ride or swim, yoga or weights?
I don't do anything consistently other than yoga is probably the most consistent. There's a 5:30 gentle yoga class that I like to go to Wednesday mornings. Mm-hmm. And it's a group of people who are generally not intense yogis. So the instructor is wonderful because she walks us through everything. She gives us water breaks and we, it's relaxing. It's stretching. I really, really enjoy it a lot. And I think that it helps stretch and elongate all those muscles that you're working on when you're doing your other types of training. A couple times during the summer, I would swim laps because, it was so nice outside. You wanted to get in the water and it just felt good. I need to do more with the weight training because I've kind of fallen away from that. And I think that would help tremendously if I want to get faster.
Sure.
Right. Well, it's coming up. It's fall now, and soon it'll be, what did you call this, Chris? The weightlifting season?
Yeah, strength building season.
Yeah. That's what I've kind of decided that I want to do. I'm doing a 5K next month with a girlfriend who is running her first 5K. And I told her that I would pace her and run with her. She doesn't want her husband there because she said he would make her nervous. But I'm going to run with her. And then in November, I'm going down to Columbus to run in the hot chocolate 15K with my niece who lives down there.
Oh, nice.
And then after that,
nice.
Yeah, I think that'll be really fun. I've heard that's a fun race. And then after that, I think I want to kind of cut back over the winter, maintain a base, but really do some of the other cross training that my brain knows I need to do, but I really haven't built it in as regularly as I should. I feel like if I do that over the winter, by the time I can start ramping up again in the spring, I should be stronger and I should have a more solid routine. Hopefully next summer I'll be able to continue some of that.
That's great. A good plan.
Now we just have to execute, right?
Yes. Do you eat in any particular way?
Not really. I know that's not a good answer, but
no, that's a fine answer. You pretty much eat whatever you want.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. I actually try to watch my cholesterol because it's over 200. It's not crazy over 200. It's just a little bit over, and I know it needs to be lower. So I often only have meat like once a day.
Okay.
But I try to eat well-rounded whole foods. I try not to eat a lot of the processed stuff.
Right.
But I do not get particular about any one, having one thing all the time or not having something all the time. I tend to think that a balanced and well-rounded meal does the body good because it needs all those different nutrients and you get them from a lot of different food sources. And if you were to eliminate any of those, your body's not getting what it needs. So my approach is just very practical, simple, and like to only eat things that I can pronounce.
Okay. That's a good way to do it. That's for sure. Well, what's it?
Maybe that is more particular than I was thinking. I don't know.
Well, can you give us an example, like a typical day for you? Do you have like a breakfast smoothie or like do you pack a sandwich or a salad for lunch? And like, I don't know, what's a typical dinner? If you could just kind of outline what a typical day might be.
For a typical breakfast, some of my favorite things are just having yogurt with fruit and granola on it for breakfast. It's quick, it's easy, it's healthy. If I run in the morning, I typically get up, run, and then have breakfast when I get back. My favorite thing to have after a run is a smoothie. And I have to add the protein powder to make sure that there is some protein for recovery, but that's easy enough to do. Mm-hmm. So those are probably my more common breakfasts. Lunch is a wild card because a lot of times I have business lunches, and so I have to order off a menu. I usually pick a salad. Sometimes I'll pick like salmon and a vegetable. It all kind of depends on where we're going or what's being ordered, but try to make smart choices within the parameters of wherever we're eating.
Right.
And then for dinner, it's usually pretty simple because lunch is more often my main meal of the day. Like tonight, for example, we had grilled chicken and then grilled zucchini, and that was dinner. It was tasty, it was light, it was easy. My husband and I both work, so neither one of us has time to cook anything elaborate for dinner, and keep it simple. During the winter, we'll do a lot of crock pot things because you can set it in the morning and just let it go.
Right.
I've got a vegetarian chili recipe that's actually really good.
Oh, wow. Would you be willing to share that with us?
Absolutely. I can send it to you when we're done.
Oh, good. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I always love it when someone who eats super healthy, but they have like a favorite recipe, because I'm always looking for something a little bit different, because, you can get tired of the same routine too often.
So, I mean, you just sort of said you don't eliminate food groups. Do you do any intermittent fasting, or do you or do you do the opposite of eating 6 meals a day?
I probably do more grazing than I don't fast. I just seem to need to keep food coming in relatively evenly throughout the day. So I'll eat breakfast at 6 or 6:30, probably have a snack around 9:30, and that might be an apple or a granola bar, or if I didn't have yogurt for breakfast, I might have a tub of Greek yogurt then for a snack. Lunch is going to be noon-ish. And then often I'll have dinner and then start again, I guess, the next morning.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we have made it to the lightning round.
Yeah, I think we're there. It sounds scarier than it is.
Yeah. So the lightning round is just a series of quick questions, and you can give a quick answer or you can elaborate if you want. No right or wrong things to this. And Chris and I will just alternate asking the questions. Bread, yes or no?
Yes.
Zumba or Pilates?
Do I have to go to either?
No, you can say neither.
Okay, neither.
Bike or run or swim?
Run for sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say.
Yeah.
Yep. Broccoli or cauliflower?
Broccoli.
Gym or park?
Park. I love being out of doors. Running on a treadmill or riding on a stationary bike, I feel like a gerbil. I love to be outside. Fresh air, movement, it's all good.
Eggs or oatmeal?
Because of my cholesterol, more oatmeal than eggs for sure.
Okay. That makes sense.
I like both of them. Treadmill, Stairmaster, or elliptical?
I really like using the Stairmaster. That is great for quads, and you can work up your cardio there really quickly and get an intense exercise in a fairly consolidated time.
Yeah.
So I love the Stairmaster. I'm probably on the treadmill more in the winter, but I like the Stairmaster better.
I think Stairmaster gives you a killer cardio workout, no doubt.
Oh, for sure.
Wine or beer?
Remember how I said neither on the others? I will drink wine or beer. I like them both.
Okay. Kettlebell or dumbbell?
Dumbbell.
Okay.
Quinoa or rice?
Probably rice. I like them both, but I think if I had to pick one, I would pick rice.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Especially flavored coffee. Like, I'm ready for the pumpkin spice stuff that will be, well, it's already in the, I'm ready for it. I enjoy that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's the end of our lightning round, but I still have a couple more things that, we wanted to talk with you about. And I wondered if you could share one suggestion with our Becoming Ellie listeners on getting fit and strong, what would that be?
My suggestion would be to take it slowly and to listen to your body. I think we all have a tendency to just kind of jump in and rush and have expectations about overnight results, and that's just not reality, and you're going to end up getting hurt that way. So find yourself a good program, perhaps get a personal trainer, but importantly, listen to your body, and when it's time to deviate from that plan, don't be afraid to do it. You're going to end up stronger when it's all done, because you're doing what's right for you.
Oh, that's good. Good advice. So thinking back to when you were younger, if you could give your 30-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Slow down and smell the roses. I think that I was so career oriented and I worked so many hours and worked so hard to try to get ahead that some of the relationships and some of the, taking care of your own self fell by the wayside. I kind of wish I'd focused more on some of that other stuff.
It sounds like your most recent race, where you have more fun and you end up with the same end result. So that's kind of interesting.
That's funny because I had not put those two together, but you're dead on, Chris.
Yeah. And I know you said a couple times little things about a full marathon. And, maybe I'm pushing here, but I was just wondering, do you have any plans to do a full marathon?
I don't know.
Sure, that's fine.
I've been thinking about it, and I've been looking at them, and I've been reading the training plans, but I also know that when I work full time, it's a huge commitment to be able to do the training to prepare yourself for one. And I don't know. I'm not quite ready to do that yet, but I'm definitely thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a big commitment.
So what's next on your agenda?
I think the next thing on my agenda is going to do some of these fun races, like the one with my girlfriend next month. She is so inspiring because she has been working out and over the last year has lost 35 pounds and is starting to run and is so excited by it. Yeah, and so I'm super happy for her. She's doing all of it the right way, and I can't wait to run that with her. And then running with my niece this fall, I think is the same kind of thing. She is a senior in college this year, and she mentioned that she runs 10 or 15 miles a week. And I said, well, Tiffany, we ought to do one of these things together. And when I mentioned the hot chocolate, she said, a lot of my friends have the hot chocolate jacket that they give you. Let's do it. So we're doing that one for the swag. But I think that'll be fun. The other thing that I haven't done in a while that I'd like to put on my calendar is another trip out west. And so maybe we can do that this winter.
That sounds good.
That'd be great. Well, you know what, Ellen, you've been a delightful guest on our podcast today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the gym and, of course, online at our Becoming Ellie group. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, thank you. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and catch up and hear about everything you're doing. It's just, it's great. You think about it that in a year and a half, you basically trained and did 2 half marathons and a number of other things, and you're enjoying it and healthy and having a good time.
That's great.
So thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was great. Ellen really benefited from running with an organized group, just like Nita Sweeney discussed in episode 42 of this podcast. I think I'm going to have to find a running group. I'm sure it would help, and I could use the social aspects too.
I really enjoyed talking with Ellen. There was a lot I could relate to, especially, the advantage of running the second marathon, because running that first marathon, everything was so new and exciting and surprising. The second one, I really feel like I got my legs under me.
It was a good conversation. Listeners, please tell us what you think by leaving a comment on our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, or leave a voicemail at 330-920-6662.
If you enjoy our podcast, tell a few of your friends and send them the link, or show them how to listen on their phones or computers. You can find our podcast in many places.
I think that's it for today. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode of Fit Strong Women Over 50.
Yes, see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.